Alright, we're tackling the 12th stage in the version 2.0 Memory of Chaos, the eve of Wanton Feast. And our teams are going to consist of Sampo, Gwenevin, Asta, and March 7th. Team 2 will consist of Misha, Hanya, Tingyun, and Lynx. Quickly going over the units here. Sampo and Gwenevin are great here just because damage over time is extremely powerful, especially when you have Sampo as one of the dealers because he does inflict a damage over time taken debuff on all enemies through his ult. Asta is a pretty alright support unit because she does bring some speed and some pretty decent buffs. Then March 7th has the utility through her freeze, kind of trivializing the first half of the first battle. For the second half, Misha is a very safe DPS because he can freeze the bosses with a pretty good chance unless they're immune to control effects or resistant to control effects, meaning that he's one of the safest DPS, and since Sam can be weakness broken just through using offensive skills, his type weaknesses don't matter as much, so Misha does have full type advantage here. Hanya has an offensive skill, making her another great support when facing Sam. Tingyun is there just because she keeps Misha's ult up as much as possible. Misha's going to be ulting probably 1 or 2 times per cycle, and Tingyun pretty much just makes sure that he's dealing as much damage as he can. For the support, honestly, if you're not running off an offensive skill, you just need a support that will get you through the stage, and I'd say Lynx is good enough for that because she's less affected by the healing reduction since she does increase a unit's max HP with her skill. So obviously Japard's going to be the strongest choice with his offensive skill, but I don't think that Lynx is a bad option either. Anyways, without further ado, let us get started. Alright, we're going to start this out with a Sampo technique into a March 7th freeze. Okay, so we got a Shapeshifter freeze. That's a bonus. So we don't start out too fancy. Big thing I'll point out is we do use March 7th shield on herself, so that she generates aggro, so she gets hit here, counterattacks here, and now has her ult. There's 2 chances for this to happen since there are 2 bosses, and the main point of this is so that we can freeze Shapeshifter in between his turns, so that we can prevent the minions from being summoned. This doesn't do anything other than limit the amount of damage we take, but it is really nice when we're running March 7th, who has less AoE coverage in terms of sustain. We do leave the Trotters alive in between cycles because we do want to optimize it where they are just destroying each other so that we don't have to focus on them as much. We'll just refresh our burn, and unfortunately we will get hit with Voidranger here. March 7th is targeted, so that's the most optimal outcome, but it's an annoying attack since we do get to... Okay, I actually wasn't expecting that. Okay, yeah, that was a very time efficient. I was expecting that to take another cycle. Unfortunately, because we did finish it that quickly, Sampo doesn't have his ult energy. If he has his ult, you want to use it as soon as the boss summons these swords so that you can inflict the damage over time, or the damage over time taking up debuff on them.
No manners, huh?
Now we can get our speed buff, which pushes us all up to this cycle. And we can just focus the boss down. Might as well use an ult. We'll start shielding up now, but the main thing is we do have Sampo's ult, so we guarantee kill that sword, opening up a space on the field for the second Trotter, and we can once again just optimize our targets by having the Trotters kill each other.
Who invited you?
So yeah, as you can see, the Trotter just destroys itself, destroys the sword. And while I'm not relying on March 7th freezing here, if you can interrupt bosses between their 2 attacks, you send them to the back of the turn order and kind of mess up their attack patterns. so you can take advantage of this to prevent some annoying attacks from getting out.
Everything is those stars.
Now just give ourselves some speed up, and the fight's pretty straightforward from here. The boss doesn't summon any more than minions because we're not going to let him get to that point. So it's just basically splitting the boss between, or the damage between the boss and the trotter, which is unfortunately a little bit of RNG on Sampo's end since his attack is a bounce. But we got lucky enough there where most of them hit the boss. Not overly concerned about this ultimate because all of our units have shields, or they will after this turn here. So that's going to mitigate all of the damage. And we'll try for the freeze, but we don't need it. Oh. Okay, that's great. The HP's a little high. One thing I will point out is freeze is a great debuff here, because when you freeze an enemy, they don't go to the end of the turn order, they go, or they're advanced pretty far up in the turn order, so you can get the enemies to take multiple turns consecutively by just freezing them, because they'll take damage on the freeze when they are frozen, and then on the recovery turn, so they're taking damage 2 times in a very short time span. So it's just a nice thing if you're running a damage over time team. For the second half, we have 3 passive techniques and 1 offensive technique, so there's not really a lot to explain using them. We start out with Tinyun's ultimate though, just because we are running dance on her, so we can optimize our speeds a little bit here, since the turn orders don't start at exactly 0. We are saving Misha's ult till his turn, because every time a unit uses a skill, he gains a stack, and there's no point in just prematurely using his ult when we can just farm more stacks. The only downside I'd say is that he loses out on the energy that he gains from allies using skills. We did freeze the clock, which is a little unlucky, but I'm not that was foolish of me, I should have used Shralt. But I'm not relying on it because it is just RNG at the end of the day, and I try to limit the amount of RNG these runs take because it's just not reliable. And I don't want to waste a bunch of time resetting the runs just to get the perfect rolls. Anya does move for Misha, so we'll use her skill and then we can use Misha's ult again. As I mentioned earlier, he gets the stacks.
Recount.
And we froze the TV again, so it's pretty much out of commission here. And it was hit by the trotter, so it's gonna die to damage over time. So we don't really have to pay attention to it anymore. Use the buff here, and we can get Misha's ult out, which is just nice, a little bit more damage, and we can get the bleed break here, which is just great because I do have Anya on a break set, so her bleed is going to deal a pretty good chunk of damage. Oh, she's dead to damage over time. Direwolf's a little closer, so we'll target him. And we'll just regenerate energy now, actually. We don't really need to focus them since they both move at the end of the cycle. So again, we use the dance light cone to its fullest by using it at the start of the battle. And we might as well focus the trotters. But when Sam is in this enhanced state, you never want to use Hanya's skill on the trotter, because you actually do need to hit Sam with the skill. It's not just using the skill, you actually need to hit him to consume the molten core stacks.
Still in denial.
We'll get the debuff on Sam since we're going to be focusing him. Another thing I will point out is you never want to use Misha's ultimate in this little time before the boss uses his buff, because honestly you want to use it when you have the chance to freeze the boss to consume more molten core stacks while taking less damage, not during this time where you can't even damage his toughness bar. So we do try to freeze in between his actions as much as we can, since if you can freeze, you delay his action by setting him to the back of the turn order, and also kind of mess up his pattern in a way, so you can get his or force his ult to come out on turn 3 instead of turn 2, for example.
Let's start today's duty.
So again, we're going to save up Misha's ultimate until Sam takes his next action. And we'll use another skill for another stack of the ult. Oh, we got lucky that time.
Still in denial.
I will call out that Sam does actually have control effect res, so it is harder to freeze him than most other bosses, so that's why he's not getting frozen as much. But Misha has a pretty good freeze rate against every other boss, making him a very safe DPS. We'll use a skill here just because we will fully regenerate our ultimate when we do get hit, so we might as well tank it. And now we give Misha his ultimate. I do actually want to save it here because we will break the boss out of the enhanced state here, meaning that he has the 50% damage taken debuff, meaning this ult is going to hit harder. And since Misha does freeze like the entire field when he uses his ult, it is pretty safe to go into the next turn with lower health since we do freeze Direwolf. Anyways, we just tried to maximize as much damage as we can while the boss has the debuff. We got 2 ults off, which is actually pretty good. So one of the nice things about Tingyun is she just makes Misha able to spam his ult a lot more, meaning that he's has higher uptime as a DPS. We'll heal. So since Sam isn't in his best state, we can actually hit the Trotter at no risk to ourselves. We'll save up Tingyun's ult since there's no point in overcapping ult energy. And as you can see here, we'll just use Misha's ult. Then we can recharge Misha through Tingyun's ult. And that gives him enough energy just to get his ult with another skill. So yeah, it's just really nice. Or less if he gets hit by the boss.
I shall be the judge. Sorry for bothering you. The 10 Lords decree, hereby ordained.
Yeah, and the buffs are running low, and you might as well get more stacks. Once again, we try to freeze in between actions. No luck. We haven't successfully negated a boss ult, which sucks.
Welcome, customers.
I think using her skill's too risky. We might have got the ult, but I don't think we would survive the aftermath. And I'm pretty sure we'll get the ult from this, since it is an AoE that follows his ult. And even though Sam does get the damage taken debuff after broken out of the state, I'm going for the safer route by trying to freeze him, just to reduce the damage we take, since we have 2 cycles, and he has under 10% HP, so I'm alright with playing it safe at the cost of a cycle.
This is serious.
Yeah, I can just use the skill here.
The will of the 10 Lords. The 10 Lords decree, hereby ordained.
I think he might be dead to damage over time. We'll have to see. I think I'll hit the Trotter with Lynx's basic here. Alright, and that was the end of stage 12. Sorry for the cut there. I forgot to show off the unit stats at the end. So there's not a lot to the builds. Obviously, I am running Eyes of Prey on Sampo just because he does need more effect hit rate than a lot of characters. Prisoner in Deep Confinement and the front line set for both our damage over time characters. All characters are E6, so I will still show it just so you know, but just be aware. Again, Prisoner in Deep Confinement, and Vermont just to maximize her DPS. Asta, Meshing Cogs because I do want her ult up as much as possible. I could have switched her to the Penacony set if I wanted to maximize things a little bit more, but I was just feeling lazy, so. For March 7th, just Night Purity Palace, and again, Broken Keel because I was being lazy and didn't want to switch sets. Misha on the Fall of an Eon for the Light Cone, and I am running Pioneer because he does have debuff that he inflicts on his own, and Inert because all his damage does come from his ult, especially when running with T-Gun. I do have Dance on both of my Harmony characters because Sam is a very fast boss, so it is nice to be able to keep up with his speed and kind of push him out of his state. I am running Thief and Break on Anya because she is breaking the Trotters most of the time, so I want her to maximize the damage that she does through Bleed, and also on the break itself. Tingyan, nothing fancy, just maximizing her attack and all that. A Broken Keel does make sense on these characters because Misha is going to be your main DPS, and he does all the crit damage. I did run Watchmaker and Penacony on links because I was experimenting with a Shui Yi kind of team. I just liked Misha for the consistency that he brings through his freeze and just overall great damage output. And yeah, that is the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and I am hoping to get the MoC 11 out over the next few days, so look forward to that.